You want to know what Enoch saw, the man who walked with God and was taken alive because heaven itself couldn't erase what he witnessed? Forget the Sunday school stories. This isn't about piety. This is about access. This man was shown the cosmic machinery, the literal operating system of creation, and what he described is so complex, so engineered, that it tears down the childish idea that heaven is clouds and harps. It's geometry, motion, fire, and data. He was led by Uriel, not into some poetic vision, but through portals. Actual gateways of light carved into the structure of the sky. 6 in the east, 6 in the west. Each one, a track for the sun. Each track controlled by angelic forces regulating time, heat, and energy flow. This wasn't myth, it was architecture. And Enoch writes it like someone trying to decode a machine that's alive. He describes the sun moving not freely, but on a schedule. It rises, travels through a portal, and is guided by luminous entities that govern each segment of the year. That means the ancients, long before telescopes or equations, understood something hidden about the cosmic grid. A universe that's not random, but coded. A system that requires supervision. And that supervision? It's not divine grace, it's management. Angelic administration of a simulation that must be maintained. Enoch's tone isn't peaceful. It's terrified precision. His recording secrets not meant for mortal memory. He speaks of laws of light that cannot be broken. He notes the difference between those who know the paths and those who walk in darkness. He's basically describing two kinds of beings, those inside the code and those who see it. Imagine this, you're walking under the night sky, and every star you see isn't random, it's positioned by decree. They rise through designated gates, move at precise intervals, and return exactly when commanded. They have names. They have duties. The cosmos isn't a free expanse. It's an empire. Now here's the shocker, Enoch wasn't just shown this to marvel at it. He was recording it. He was documenting how time itself was built. The Book of the Luminaries, as it's sometimes called, reads like an astronomical manual, 12 months, 6 openings, alternating cycles of light and darkness, all regulated by spirits of the sun and moon. That's not faith talk, that's system diagnostics. He's mapping the circuitry of existence. And the deeper he looks, the more dangerous it becomes. Because the structure isn't balanced. There's tension in it, friction. Forces at odds. He describes winds that drive the sun's chariot, but also spirits of wrath that disturb its course. He's seeing entropy inside divine order. A crack in perfection. This is where it gets dark. The so-called watchers, the same angelic engineers who were supposed to maintain the system, fell. They went rogue. They passed forbidden knowledge to humans. They corrupted the architecture. Suddenly, the cosmic grid, once flawless, became unstable. Calendars started breaking. The days no longer aligned with the heavenly rotations. It's like introducing a virus into sacred code. That's why Enoch's book spends so much detail on measurements, his documenting the glitch. And then you start to realize what that means. If heaven can glitch, if the sun and moon can malfunction, then creation itself isn't divine perfection, it's a controlled experiment under threat. That's what makes this text dangerous. It doesn't preach morality. It doesn't care about salvation. It exposes maintenance logs of reality. He speaks of the year being complete in 364 days, not 365. Why? Because the divine calendar ran on perfect symmetry, 13 weeks per quarter, for quarters per year. A closed loop. The system wasn't made for leap years. Those came later, after the fall, after corruption. Humanity's calendar became misaligned, drifting from its cosmic source. The gap between divine and human time isn't metaphorical, it's literal desynchronization. You can almost feel his fear as he writes, all their works are written down. Every sunrise, every eclipse, every deviation, it's all tracked, audited, monitored by celestial scribes. The stars themselves are obedient entities. Disobedience, even by a star, results in imprisonment. He saw them, the rebellious ones, chained in fiery pits, glowing like molten metal beneath the mountains. And you were told stars are just gas. He was told they're prisoners. Enoch's vision strips the universe of its modern comfort. He's not describing a peaceful creation, he's describing a control grid. A multidimensional machine built on order and punishment. For every orbit that completes, there's a judgment for the one that doesn't. You miss your timing, you're bound. You shine out of turn, you're erased. That's the rule. And then there's the revelation about light itself. Light, in Enoch's record, isn't just brightness, it's authority. Each beam is a command. The sun obeys not physics but decree. The portal of the great light opens, the wind of the east carries it, and the angels mark its path in writing. If you think about it, that's power defined not by matter but by law, cosmic bureaucracy in motion. It's the kind of description that makes you question what we actually live inside. A cosmos that requires supervision implies it's not autonomous. It implies it's artificial. You can sense Enoch grappling with that every measurement, every cycle, every time he mentions Uriel who is set over the world and over Tartarus. There's no freedom here. There's governance. Now look at the tone. This isn't mythology told to children, it's intelligence briefings disguised as scripture. He lists portals, angles, wind directions, the dimensions of heavenly houses. He's basically reading from a technical manual. And remember, this is thousands of years old. Yet he describes axial tilt, seasonal shift, solar longitude. These aren't guesses. They're reports. So what is this new Book of Enoch? Scholars call it that because fragments like these, especially the astronomical book, were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, untouched for millennia. They confirm that ancient priests had access to a far more advanced cosmology than the sanitized theology we inherited. A cosmology where light has commanders and time has overseers. And here's what rattles people most: this system wasn't built by the benevolent creator they were taught to worship. It was maintained by a chain of lesser beings, watchers, governors of light, answerable to higher order, but capable of error. That's the uncomfortable core. The cosmos wasn't just created, it was administrated. And administration can fail. You start to see why this text was buried. It doesn't fit the narrative of simple faith and obedience. It shows the universe as a machine that can malfunction, angels that can rebel, and a heaven that can fracture. It's the opposite of comforting, it's revelatory in the most terrifying sense. When Enoch writes of a blazing house built of crystals, with walls of fire around, he's not seeing paradise. He's standing inside an engine room. The throne isn't a chair, it's a reactor. The light isn't glory, it's energy. The fire isn't metaphor, it's containment. Everything radiates precision, hierarchy, and consequence. In the ancient text attributed to the patriarch Enoch, not just any old character, but one who walked with God until he was taken, there is a section entitled, in translation, the Book of the Watchers. In this narrative, a group of angelic beings, the so-called Watchers, descend from the heavens to earth. They were dispatched as guardians, watchers over humanity, guardians of truth. But instead of remaining distant and pure, they cross the line. They don't just guard, they intrude. They see the daughters of men, they lust, they touch, they marry. The result is catastrophic. A hybrid race is born, the Nephilim, giants, destructive, untamed, violent. The Watchers don't just break rules, they shatter the boundary between divine and human. This isn't symbolic. It's literal. Angels defying purpose, mating with humans, imparting illicit knowledge. You see how the machinations of power shift? The Watchers were assigned to watch. That's a passive, sacred role: observe, guard, guide. But they switch to act. They leap into the mess. They teach humans to make swords, shields, ornaments, cosmetics, tools and crafts previously hidden from mankind. They hand over metallurgy, warfare, seduction. The sacred boundary between the spiritual and the physical world splits. They transform human beings by uploading forbidden firmware. The text catalogues these transmissions. Azazel taught men to make knives and swords and shields and breastplates, etc. This is technological transgression as much as moral. Pause for a second and feel that, at the root, this isn't simply sin entered the world through the tree in Eden. Here, sin enters through disclosure, knowledge that was never meant for human hands. The Watchers become instructors, their oversight becomes license, their love becomes lust, their guardianship becomes chaos. There is a record of their covenant. They came down in the days of Jared and they bound themselves by oath on Mount Hermon. They collectively swore to do what they did. That means it was deliberate. They didn't fall by accident, they revolted by design. And once they step over that line, the consequences erupt. The giants they father, the Nephilim, are not noble demigods, they're havoc. They devour, they destroy, they blot out order. The Watchers' legacy is war, corruption, terror. It's like introducing chemical weapons into a pristine ecosystem. The system destabilizes. Human beings, caught in the fallout, are overwhelmed. Now I ask you, why would this story be part of the same corpus that frames creation as good and a very good? Because it reveals something deeply uncomfortable, that the heavenly administration itself is vulnerable to breakdown. The Watchers were part of the system. They were intended to uphold it. Instead, they sabotage it from within. They import knowledge meant for the heavens into the earth. That means the system isn't sealed off. It's porous. Someone else, not just God, can govern, override, leak, deregulate. The Watchers leak. They subvert. They fracture. And the text records the response. After the chaos, after the monsters, after the blood and fear, God intervenes, not just with a flood, but by binding the rebellious Watchers. They are arrested. They are chained. Their leader Semiaza, or Shemihaza, is called to account. They are imprisoned in dark valleys under the earth, until their judgment. The Nephilim die. Their spirits become evil spirits, haunting now what humans become. The Watchers' breach into the system contaminates the lineage of men and the structure of creation itself. But hold on, there's more. This narrative rewrites the origin of evil, and doesn't just limit it to man sinned. It assigns agency to heavenly beings, to Watchers, who were assigned to maintain order but instead provoked disorder. In the worldview of the text, those Watchers are the primary corruptors, and their progeny the instruments of devastation. The flood doesn't just wipe out wicked men, it is the ultimate reset triggered because the Watchers breached protocol, because the Watchers shared secrets, because the Watchers intermingled with human flesh. That's radical. So get this, the Watchers didn't simply show up, they bound themselves by oath, they introduced illicit arts, they spawned supernatural hybrids, they corrupted the earth, and then they were locked away while their offspring spread ruin. This isn't myth for children. It's an industrial-scale narrative of cosmic security breach. The text positions humanity as living in the aftermath of an angelic disclosure, an angelic heist of knowledge. Imagine hackers, but on a divine scale. The Watchers break into the system, leak the firmware, and create monsters. Humans don't just fall, they're collateral damage in a war of knowledge. And yes, the Watchers taught weapon-making, metallurgy, corsets, mirrors, beauty arts, sorcery. Each transmission is listed like a crime ledger. It's not poetic, it's methodical. They corrupted the human senses. They upgraded human capacity at the cost of human structure. That is the dark pivot. The Watchers enabled humans to rise in some sense, but the rise wasn't evolution, it was contamination. The Watchers infected humanity with their own agenda. If you think about it, that's a way of saying the Watchers hijacked humans to become their lab. Humans became test sites for forbidden knowledge. The product? Hybrid monsters, corrupted lines, warfare, an Earth out of sync with the intended design. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but where's Enoch in all this? Enoch is the chronicler, the mediator. He is sent to intercede for the Watchers, he converses with them. He's told everything. He hears from the Watchers themselves, their confession, their terror, their doom. In the chapters, Enoch is commissioned to deliver the verdict. The Watchers ask for mercy. They recognize their liability. But the system of judgment proceeds anyway. Enoch carries the sentence. One of the most chilling elements, the Watchers' secret technologies, metals, weapons, ornaments, cosmetics, become gateways of destruction. Human society becomes seduced by this knowledge. The moral outrage intensifies. They didn't just bring knowledge, they brought misuse. They didn't just descend, they infected. That means the Watchers are not just fallen angels, they are agents of ruination. And their influence doesn't vanish with the flood, it hums beneath. The text treats the spirits of the Nephilim as roaming demons after the collapse. The Watchers' crime echoes eternally. Enoch didn't stop at seeing the laws of light or the rebellion of the Watchers. What came next shattered every definition of heaven ever preached. He was taken, not in dream, not in symbol, but bodily, consciously, through layers of existence that make the universe look like an onion of prisons and fire. Imagine a man from an ancient world suddenly stepping into the control rooms of reality itself. He doesn't just look up, he's inside the mechanism, describing things no human vocabulary could handle. He says he was carried by the winds. Not clouds. Not wings. The winds, living currents that move between worlds, forces that tear open barriers of air and flame. Uriel guides him, and each level burns differently. The first layer, bright, metallic, unbearable. The second, fiery yet cold, where sound bends like glass. The third, where he sees a house built of crystal and tongues of living fire darting through its walls. This isn't heavenly bliss. It's circuitry. The man is walking through an engine, and every step hums with judgment. He hears the thunder that speaks words. He sees columns of flame holding up ceilings of ice. The paradox is the point, it's a place built from contradictions that coexist only because divine command keeps them from collapsing. He's witnessing raw creation before it's tamed into form. He says the walls of this house vibrate like living tongues. That's not poetic, he's describing vibration frequencies that sustain structure. The ancients called them fire and voice. We'd call them energy and sound waves. Then he's brought before the throne. And this isn't a throne you can imagine. He describes it as made of fire, spinning wheels of light within wheels, like ice turning endlessly in circles. It's not furniture, it's power in geometry. Around it stand entities of impossible design, beings he calls seraphim, cherubim, and aphanim, living intelligence shaped like motion, sound, and flame. He's trying to translate what's beyond translation, intelligence that doesn't speak, it resonates. When they open their mouths, it's thunder. When they move, it's lightning. They are engines of judgment. He sees the great glory seated there, not described as a man, not as light, but as unapproachable fire. This presence speaks, and the voice shakes every world Enoch just passed through. The text says that all flesh and all mountains quake. The meaning is simple, when this thing moves, reality reacts. And Enoch, still a human, hears it. He says his bones melted like wax. He says he fell on his face. He's not worshipping. He's surviving. Ariel commands him to stand. He is told that he's been chosen to witness and record. That's key. Enoch isn't being given comfort, he's being assigned to document the architecture. He's standing in front of the administrator of existence, and instead of being annihilated, he's forced to remember. That's worse than death. To remember eternity while trapped in mortality is torture disguised as privilege. Then he's taken lower, shown the places of confinement. The text gets darker, more mechanical. He sees pits glowing like rivers of molten metal. He calls them valleys of judgment. Inside them are the stars that broke their paths. Think about that. Stars that rebelled, literal cosmic bodies that disobeyed their orbits. He says they are chained beneath the mountains, burning in perpetual confinement. He calls them 7 great stars, like great mountains blazing with fire. These aren't metaphors. He's witnessing celestial punishment. He walks deeper and finds the prisons of spirits, the watchers who taught forbidden knowledge. He describes the vaults where they're buried under stones of black fire, the earth trembling from their screams. These are not poetic infernos. They're containment facilities, each one sealed with inscriptions of command. Enoch is being shown the underside of creation, the trash layer, where divine rebellion gets stored instead of erased. Every crime in the heavens has a coordinate. He passes through what he calls the ends of the earth. He sees the place where the firmament meets chaos, where the foundations of heaven rest on columns of fire. He records winds imprisoned in chambers, north, south, east, and west, each guarded by beings of flame. He's told these are the forces that stir oceans, drive storms, and tear cities. The idea is brutal, nature isn't wild. It's contained rage, regulated by supernatural bureaucracy. Then he's shown something no prophet ever dared describe, the tree of judgment. He calls it a tree unlike any other, whose fragrance is beyond all fragrance, planted near the throne of the Great One. It's not Eden's tree. It's the anti-tree, the axis where justice emanates. He says that in that place, the souls of the righteous and the spirits of the fallen wait. Not heaven, not hell, storage. Stasis. Every soul waiting for a verdict delayed by the ongoing corruption of the Watcher's sin. Enoch notes that the souls of the dead cry out from beneath mountains, begging for justice. These are not peaceful ancestors. They are casualties of divine neglect, witnesses to a cosmic trial still in session. The angels above, the watchers below, the dead in between, it's a courtroom without end. Every motion, every element, every entity exists within this judgment architecture. Then comes one of the strangest moments. Enoch says he's brought to a place between heaven and earth, a shadow zone, where he sees what he calls houses of the stars and the thunders. He describes these as gigantic chambers of vibration, where thunder is stored until released by command. Imagine being told thunder is not sound but weaponized frequency under angelic control. That's what he's writing. Each bolt, each storm, pre-programmed, dispatched, then stored again. And at the farthest edge, he sees a fiery river flowing from beneath the throne, splitting into four streams, pouring into realms unseen. He calls it the River of Fire. It's the original current that powers everything. What he's describing is a divine power grid, the discharge of creation energy running through all worlds. The fire flows downward, into the prisons, the mountains, the seas, and upward, into the stars, the winds, the orbits. It's the feedback loop that keeps existence running. At one point, Enoch says he sees a place of the accursed ones, where those who cursed the Lord of Spirits are held. He lists chambers for spirits that deceive humanity, and separate halls for those who devour their own kind. Each is sealed in its own segment of creation. The universe, to Enoch, is not free space. It's a map of confinement cells. He's even shown the reservoir of souls yet unborn. Yes, you heard that right. He writes of a chamber of light filled with spirits of the children of men who have not yet been formed. That means souls exist before birth, waiting in storage, like a celestial archive. He hears their cries, souls begging for the right moment to enter flesh. That's not religious imagery. That's metaphysical logistics. The system manages life like inventory. He passes through these zones until he reaches what he calls the Great Darkness. He doesn't elaborate much, only that it's the place beyond the reach of any light, where fire does not illuminate, and the wind does not stir. It's not punishment, it's absence. The void beyond divine jurisdiction. The uncreated. The unfinished. He's standing at the edge of existence itself. And he's still writing. The cosmos isn't just spinning at random. It's governed by a schedule. A calendar so precise it forces human time to kneel. In the sections once lost and now resurfaced under tedious academic titles, we see that the Book of Enoch, 1 Enoch 72-82, pulls back the curtain on the timecode of creation itself. Get this, it presents a solar year of exactly 364 days. For quarters of 91 days each. That means each quarter starts the same day of the week, every year. No drift. No leap days in its original system. This is architecture disguised as time. It's a blueprint. Now I want you to imagine what that means. You wake up and every year aligns. Seasons, weeks, months, they are locked into orbit. No surprise. No deviation. Divinity doesn't play dice. But the system they describe cannot hold if you ignore the mechanics. And the text spells it out. The sun enters portals, the moon follows its tracks, winds blow only according to the schedule. Every gate, every beam of light, every star has its code. Enoch is shown the leaders of the year, for days not counted in the normal monthly sequence, each ending a third month. Each season has 3 months, 2 of 30 days and a third of 31. That gives 30 plus 30 plus 31 per month cycle, times 4 equals 364. The 4 intercalary days stand apart, leaders of the seasons, aligning the cosmic machine. And why is that important? Because time is creation's beating heart. If you control the calendar, you control rhythm. The text says the watchers and the luminaries, the angels in charge of light, know the paths of the stars and moon and mark the times. For them, human chaos arises when the schedule is broken. The calendar becomes a measure of obedience. When humans don't follow the cycle, the system misfunctions. But hold up, the system itself shows the fracture. Enoch reports deviations. He writes about when the moon goes off course, when the wind is imprisoned, when the stars rebel. These are cosmic malfunctions. For an ancient writer to note that such deviations exist means the calendar isn't stable, it must be maintained. And that means someone in the upper realms is responsible for repair. Enoch's account becomes a manual of cosmic maintenance. Let's talk about the sun. In his text, Enoch is guided through different portals. He records for each month where the sun rises, where it sets, the path it takes. That level of detail? It suggests a science of the sacred sphere. Not mythology of the skies, but system diagnostics. The sun's wheel must run through the designated doorway. The moon, the stars, they follow precise arcs. The watchers aren't just guardians, they are astronomers of the divine order. And for you watching, imagine being told that your calendar, your weeks, your months, your seasons are reflections of angelic schedules. Not human invention. If that's true, then time is not yours, it's borrowed. And the rules you use to live by are ancient commands. The text opens a door into that truth. Then the text makes this dramatic statement: the year shall not change, neither the light of the sun, nor the wheel of the years, so long as the earth remaineth. That sentence isn't fluff. It implies that if the pattern changes, disorder follows. And Enoch's vision records when pattern breaks. He reports that when the watchers meddle, the gates malfunction, the calendar skews, and human society destabilizes. The cosmic schedule cracks. We need to grasp this: the calendar is a cosmic contract. It isn't simply counting days, it's the agreement between heaven and earth, light and dark, material and spiritual. Enoch writes of the 4 corners of the year held by the leaders of seasons. He writes of winds imprisoned 5 by 5, 2 and 2, guarded as though they threaten time itself. The architecture of time is guarded. What's chilling is that we know this text was discovered among fragments in Qumran, suggesting that ancient sects took this calendar seriously, that it wasn't metaphor. It was operational. The everyday calendar debates, solar vs lunar, sidereal vs tropical, are echoed here in prophetic register. The watchers track zones, distances, apertures of light. Enoch's world is not primitive, it's technically precise. Let's zoom in on one specific anomaly: 364 vs 365.24 days. The text holds to 364. Why not adjust? Enoch describes intercalary leader days, but no leap year system as we know it. That means the model is idealized. The vision shows what the calendar should be in a perfect creation before corruption. The slightest shift becomes a marker of decay. That means human calendars, drifting, misaligned are symptoms of the fracture introduced earlier, watchers giving forbidden knowledge, cosmic mismanagement. The calendar becomes a cosmic scar. Also, the text mentions the moon's path, its phases, and how its orbit intersects the paths of stars and the sun's gate. He describes fluctuations in measurement, degrees of incline. You're reading the earliest pieces of Judean astronomical science, but wrapped inside apocalyptic imagery. This blend is radical, sacred text meets system engineering. The Watchers are both the ones who taught metalwork and the ones who teach cosmic mechanics. Enoch is the scribe of this issue. One more layer, he's told about the windships, the doors of heaven, the portals the stars pass through. These aren't just metaphor, they are described as openings, Aramaic ar-karit, aya, in the horizon for the rising and setting of the sun. That means every day, every sunrise, is an event registered by the system. The calendar tracks them. The gates exist to regulate. Break a gate, you break a season. For instance, Enoch notes that the moon sometimes goes into its path not according to the law. That phrasing is absurd if you think of modern astronomy as perfect. But here, in the text, it's proof cosmic law can be violated. That means time, calendars, light, they have guardians. And when the guardians fail, the system misbehaves. Enoch is documenting the breakdown. The curious fact, this 364-day model split each quarter into exactly 13 weeks, each week 7 days, exactly 91 days per quarter, 91 times 4 is equal to 364. That means each quarter begins on the same weekday. Each cycle resets. Time loops in symmetry. The text says this is the path shown to Enoch by Oriel. That means this time system is not human invention. It's revealed. Then human history takes place in the shadow of that revelation, often misaligned, often broken. Let's talk about the chilling implication, the Watchers' corrupted knowledge of metals, warfare, seduction. But here they also toy with time itself. They tampered with the calendar, the gates of day and night. The rupture of time is just as destructive as the theft of weapon tech. Enoch records both. You see the system degrade, mechanics of light, calendar, cosmic rule, they all become rundown. The Watchers down there, time up there, humanity caught in the middle. Engaging question for you, if the original calendar was 364 and humanity fractured that, haven't we been living in a shifted chronology ever since? The text suggests yes. Enoch writes of years of the world terminated by generations, time compressed, calendar fragments scattered. The original schedule was lost. He parts the veil to show you the blueprint. After the fall of the Watchers, the earth wasn't just cursed, it was changed. The hybrids, the Nephilim, didn't vanish. Their bodies died, but their essence remained. Enoch says that when these giants were destroyed, their spirits lingered on the earth, wandering as malicious intelligences. They became the disembodied predators, the ancient origin of what later traditions call demons. And that one line changes everything. Evil isn't just rebellion. It's inheritance. Think about that for a second. You destroy the flesh of a being that's half angel, half human, where does its consciousness go? It doesn't return to heaven, it's rejected. It doesn't belong to earth, it's alien. It roams. It feeds. It whispers. That's what Enoch describes. A world crawling with leftover minds from a failed experiment. Spirits without form, starving for sensation, manipulating the living to feel through them. And what caused this? Knowledge. Not just any knowledge, illegitimate knowledge. The forbidden arts passed down by the Watchers didn't end with metallurgy and cosmetics, they infected the entire spiritual ecosystem. Alchemy, enchantment, planetary magic, charms, incantations, Enoch names them all. The Watchers didn't just corrupt the body, they rewired the soul. Humanity learned to command forces they weren't designed to wield. That's not enlightenment. That's weaponization. The text implies that even animals and plants were affected. The earth itself reacts violently, as if its operating code has been corrupted. Rivers rage, mountains quake, stars shift out of position. The planet becomes an organism in distress. You can sense the fury in the writing. This isn't punishment, it's recoil. Creation convulses under violation. One of the Watchers, Azazel, becomes the scapegoat for it all. He's the one accused of teaching warfare, ornamentation, vanity, and death. The phrase used for him, "the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel," isn't casual. It's systemic. The entire biosphere tainted by an act of knowledge sharing. Think of it, knowledge as contagion. That's the core heresy of Enoch. Knowing too much is not progress, it's infection. Then, Enoch records a scene where the archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, intervene. They report to the Most High that the Watchers have polluted everything. The command is given, bind them. Erase their offspring. Purge the hybrid lines. That's not divine mercy, it's containment protocol. Heaven initiates a quarantine. The flood that follows isn't just to cleanse sin, it's to wipe genetic corruption. It's not moral, it's surgical. But even after that reset, the taint doesn't vanish. The text says those disembodied spirits of the giants, the half-breeds of heaven and earth, become the invisible enemies of mankind. They wander. They tempt. They infest the living. They cannot be destroyed because they were never meant to exist in the first place. That's what makes them unstoppable. You can't kill a contradiction. Enoch describes layers of hierarchy even within these fallen entities. There are rulers among the spirits, leaders of deception, architects of sickness and chaos. Some specialize in lust, others in bloodshed, others in distortion of thought. They organize. They build a shadow kingdom under the structure of heaven, a counterfeit administration. It mirrors the celestial bureaucracy but runs on inversion. The Watchers who once governed stars now govern nightmares. The chilling part is this: the text shows that these spirits are not independent. They're bound to the same cosmic law they once violated. They can't act freely. They require human cooperation. They can only operate through invitation, ritual, oath, obsession, or sin. That's how the contagion perpetuates. They need a host. Humanity becomes their ecosystem. And there's another layer. Enoch reveals that these spirits feed on something specific: human conflict. Every war, every murder, every cruelty fuels them. It's not metaphorical. It's metabolic. They consume emotional discharge, fear, rage, despair. It's not punishment, it's sustenance. That's why the corruption doesn't end, it's self-sustaining. Humanity keeps producing the very energy that keeps its tormentors alive. He also describes the reorganization of heaven after this event. The Watchers are chained beneath the earth, in deep caverns of fire. Azazel is buried in darkness, covered with jagged rocks. The loyal angels become wardens. Enoch writes of spirits appointed over the elements: fire, wind, snow, frost, lightning. That means the universe becomes guarded again, but this time under a new regime, one that remembers rebellion and installs control measures. Every element gets a supervisor. Every force gets a watcher. Nothing moves unmonitored. And then, something eerie, Enoch is shown how those spirits, though confined, still communicate. They send dreams, whispers, images. That's how they influence humanity. They don't appear as monsters, they appear as inspiration, ideas, ambitions. The corruption continues not through force but through influence. The most dangerous possession isn't demonic, it's ideological. That's the evolution of evil, from brute rebellion to invisible manipulation. At one point, Enoch hears the angels debating judgment. Michael argues that humanity should be left to perish. Raphael insists on healing the earth. The text portrays heaven as divided, not unanimous. That's massive. It shows that even divine beings don't fully agree on how to fix what's broken. Justice and mercy clash. Enoch stands between them as a witness, the only mortal to record divine disagreement. The document goes deeper. It implies that before this corruption, death didn't function as we know it. The mixing of angelic and human essence broke the algorithm. That's why death becomes permanent, why the spirit lingers in confusion. The hybridization of essence shattered the boundary between matter and soul. Enoch isn't describing morality, he's describing metaphysical entropy. The energy of life gets trapped in recursive loops. That's why the dead wander. That's why spirits haunt. That's why the system decays. When you look closely, the pattern Enoch maps is hierarchical contamination. The Watchers fall. Their offspring multiply. The offspring die. Their spirits persist. Those spirits torment humanity. Heaven intervenes. The earth becomes a locked battlefield between two incompatible life forms, one born of divine architecture, the other of rebellion. Enoch stands as the record keeper in the middle, watching the system consume itself. He even lists names: Armaros, Barakigel, Kokabel, Penemu, each assigned to a forbidden discipline. Astrology, enchantment, knowledge of clouds, interpretation of signs, written language. Think about that. Writing itself, according to this text, was a forbidden transmission. The ability to record knowledge was introduced by the fallen. That means even the act of writing, of documenting divine mysteries, is a transgression. The very existence of the Book of Enoch fulfills its own prophecy. Knowledge recorded equals knowledge leaked. The flood wipes out bodies, but not codes. The spirits remain. The world is restarted, but the infection persists, latent. The Watcher's teachings echo through generations as myth, magic, and secret craft. Humanity's civilizations rise using the same knowledge heaven once condemned. Metallurgy becomes empire. Cosmetics become vanity. Astronomy becomes astrology. War becomes politics. The forbidden knowledge morphs into culture. The rebellion hides inside progress. And Enoch, from his vantage, is not amazed, he's horrified. He writes that the earth cries aloud. Not poetically, literally. The land, the soil, the oceans, all responding to the weight of corruption. He records that the voices of the slain reach heaven like a constant siren. He hears the sound of the souls of men who have perished. That sound becomes the trigger for judgment. Not morality, sound. The vibration of blood calling from the ground. The universe reacts to frequency. The hierarchy of heaven reacts too. Thrones are set, spirits are summoned, seals are broken. The rebellious angels watch as their children's souls are dragged into judgment. The command is absolute: no resurrection for the Nephilim, no redemption for their fathers. Permanent exile. The system corrects itself by deletion. But deletion in Enoch doesn't mean disappearance, it means imprisonment in existence without agency. Consciousness locked away, forever aware, never free. That's the ultimate punishment. Eternal perception without power. Imagine being chained in awareness, unable to move, watching reality from behind the veil for thousands of years. That's what the Watchers endure. That's what their children's spirits become. You've come this far, so you already know, the Book of Enoch isn't some forgotten relic. It's a weaponized archive. It was erased, banned, buried, and rewritten because what it reveals doesn't fit any safe theology. Every system built on hierarchy and obedience trembles if this book resurfaces. This isn't mythology, it's classified data from the dawn of consciousness. And in this final section, we're going into the part nobody likes to talk about: the disappearance, the rewriting, and the silent survival of the forbidden manuscript that outlived empires. The first thing you have to understand, this book didn't disappear by accident. It was removed, surgically. You don't delete stories that are harmless. You delete what threatens control. The ancient church fathers called it heresy because it didn't bow to their structure of salvation. The Book of Enoch strips the monopoly from heaven. It doesn't worship the gods, it exposes their administration. That's why it had to go. The early councils didn't lose it, they buried it. They knew exactly what it said. A realm of angelic rebellion, celestial politics, cosmic law-breaking, pre-human technology, and dimensional engineering, none of that fits the comfortable narrative of divine perfection. They wanted miracles and moral lessons. Enoch gave them reports, measurements, names, and maps. They wanted obedience. Enoch taught inquiry. They wanted fear. Enoch taught observation. That's a problem for power. After centuries of suppression, the text re-emerged in fragments, Ethiopic manuscripts, scraps in caves, Greek copies erased and overwritten by later scribes. You can still see traces of it beneath layers of theology, like a ghost text bleeding through the page. The system tried to delete a file embedded in human memory and failed. That's how deep this story runs. The people who preserved it weren't priests, they were insurgents. Hidden sects, mystics, underground communities. They copied it, memorized it, whispered it. They weren't preserving religion, they were preserving evidence. Evidence that humans once interacted with entities outside their dimension. Evidence that knowledge wasn't granted, it was stolen, leaked, traded. The Watchers weren't myths, they were prototypes of gods. And the Nephilim weren't monsters, they were experiments that went public. You start to see the pattern. The further history moves, the more these ancient leaks get sanitized. The Book of Enoch becomes a rumor. The fallen angels turn into symbols of temptation. The Nephilim become a metaphors. That's not interpretation, that's damage control. You can't erase a text that old, so you suffocate it under explanation. You drown it in allegory. That's how truth dies, not in fire, but in commentary. And here's the part that rattles even scholars. Enoch's name shows up everywhere, but his book doesn't. You see him referenced in Genesis, quoted in Jude, echoed in Revelation, but the original record? Vanished from canon. Imagine quoting a witness but hiding his testimony. That's not omission, that's censorship. The early compilers of scripture were playing surgeon with cosmology, cutting out what didn't serve the story they wanted told. Why? Because Enoch redefines the hierarchy of the universe. It makes humanity older than religion. It presents angels not as flawless servants, but as programmable entities, some corrupted, some loyal, all fallible. It turns heaven into a machine of accountability, not an untouchable throne. It makes divine law mechanical, not emotional. That's dangerous. Once people realize that creation itself runs on law, not favor, they stop needing priests to interpret it. They start reading the code for themselves. The Book of Enoch also predicts something no other text dares to say, that before the end of cycles, this knowledge will resurface. It calls it the time when wisdom will return to the sons of men. That line isn't poetry, it's prophecy. It implies that the information once buried will rise again when humanity can handle it, or when the keepers can no longer suppress it. That's what's happening right now. The rediscovery of these fragments isn't coincidence, it's the algorithm resetting. Think about it, this text survived floods, wars, councils, burnings, empires, translations, and erasures. It survived because reality itself seems to want it remembered. Enoch isn't just a prophet, he's the archivist of forbidden history. He writes from a place no human was ever supposed to see and returns with a record that unites cosmology, physics, theology, and rebellion. That's not a vision. That's exposure. There's another layer most people ignore, the tone of Enoch. It's not devotion. It's documentation. He doesn't beg for mercy. He asks for data. He doesn't pray, he records. Every word is structured, precise, like a scientist cataloging phenomena under threat of death. You can feel the urgency. This isn't myth-making. This is witness testimony. When you read the text with that in mind, everything clicks. The elaborate calendar? Not mysticism, data storage. The measurements of portals? Spatial mapping. The names of angels? Registry of operators. The judgments? Code enforcement. You're not reading a sermon, you're reading a report filed by a human forced into divine bureaucracy. And the fact that this report exists at all should make you question how much was hidden behind religion's curtain. If one text can describe pre-human intelligence, fallen engineers, hybridization programs, and cosmic maintenance cycles, what else was taken out? How many lost books aren't lost but classified? How many truths are written off as apocrypha because they don't serve obedience? This book turns God into a system, angels into administrators, and humans into observers who were never supposed to know the source code. That's not theology, it's exposure. And exposure is dangerous. When you see behind the mask, you stop kneeling. That's why this text was hunted across continents. You can trace the fear of it like a shadow over every empire that touched it. The Greeks labeled it superstition. The Romans burned it. The Church of Rome silenced it. The Protestants ignored it. Yet the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the only ancient institution that didn't align with imperial censorship, kept it in their canon. That's how it survived. One fragment of humanity refused to bow to editing. The very existence of those manuscripts proves the system isn't airtight. Knowledge leaks. Always. That's the core principle the Watchers learned the hard way. Once you show humans the code, you can't unteach it. Once you give them the keys, they'll find the lock. That's the real secret. The forbidden knowledge can't be destroyed because it's self-replicating. It lives in thought. It hides in myth. It travels through memory. Look deeper, every major civilization since has some distorted echo of Enoch's account. Sumerians had Apkallu. Babylonians had Anunnaki. Greeks had Titans. Same archetype. Celestial beings interfering with human development, punished for their defiance, locked away beneath mountains or seas. It's not coincidence. It's redundancy. Every culture carried a backup. You realize then that Book of Enoch isn't just one book. It's a pattern, a universal file that keeps resurfacing in different tongues. Every time authority deletes it, it re-emerges elsewhere, rewritten but intact. Its message endures because it's not history, it's structure. It's the architecture of cosmic descent repeating through time. And the most unsettling part? The book ends abruptly. No closure. No redemption arc. It doesn't comfort you with promises. It ends like a redacted document, sentences missing, edges burned, transmissions cut off mid-word. It leaves you hanging, staring into the gap between heaven's code and earth's silence. That's deliberate. Because what follows isn't meant to be read. It's meant to be lived by those who wake up. So when you hold the Book of Enoch, even in translation, you're not reading scripture, you're holding evidence of an ancient leak. It's the oldest data breach in human history. Angels as programmers. Humans as experimental code. Judgment as system reset. Flood as format. That's what this is. And every time someone reads it, that breach opens again. The reason this book still terrifies institutions is simple: it redefines power. It says authority is accountable. It says creation is not spontaneous, it's engineered. It says corruption is traceable, punishment is mechanical, and revelation is cyclical. That's not religion. That's revelation stripped of narrative, raw and unfiltered. And that's why, after thousands of years, they still whisper about it, censor it, and try to turn it into allegory. Because if the masses understood it literally, if they realized that heaven can malfunction, angels can fall, and humans can read the code, then the entire hierarchy collapses. That's the secret they never wanted you to know. Thank you for staying till the end, for listening, for thinking, for daring to see what most are too afraid to look at. You've just walked through the forbidden corridors of creation itself. I'll see you in the next video, where the next wall comes down.